Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Tea Time, Tea on Security Mondays at 8 a.m. PST. Sorry, I'm new to this whole streaming thing. I'm trying to get uh, Dr. Joe in here right now, so bear with me just for a moment. Hey everybody, sorry about that. Getting getting my learning on the job. So welcome to the Tea on Security Mondays at 8 a.m. Today I have a special guest, and look at him. He's wearing his Solentech shirt. Woo woo, represent. I know you can't see me on camera right now, but um, that's awesome. Dr. Joe is a senior business analyst at the North Carolina Department of Human and Health Services, and he has also been our fractional CTO since the inception of Solentech in 2020. We started the company in 2019, but we didn't launch it until 2020. And he's here today to talk about data-driven decision making. So before we get started, I'll go ahead and talk about vulnerabilities first for the week. Today, since we have a guest, I'll keep it short. I just want to talk about the SharePoint vulnerability in Microsoft data-driven decision making. I had all my notes up, and now I'm lost here. So. And then I'll just let you talk. I'll ask some questions. We'll relate it to cybersecurity, maybe how we're building Valkyrie and using data-driven algorithms and decision making, and how much more efficient it is for algorithms that are repeatable and measurable to do it versus a human when we're dealing with lots of data that's not human consumable. So with that, let me talk about Microsoft. So I'm not sure if you guys have heard, and next time I'll set up my screen better so you could see me. I don't want to do it in the middle of the show. But maybe I'll cut him out and then just show my face so you could see me for a minute, but you guys don't care what I look like. Plus, Dr. Joe, I had some family stuff going on last night, so nothing to look at today. And next time I'll set up my screen better so you could see. Can we hear you, Joe? Do it in the middle of the show. No, we cannot hear you. Let me check. Probably going through my mouse ears. Hopefully the audience hears you. Yeah, it's going through my headphones. I'm all messed up today. Nothing to look at today. And next time. Okay, try again, bud. Can we get a test? Can we hear you? Well, I'm not sure if our audience can hear you, but I definitely cannot hear you. No. Can you try to say something while I'm on the YouTube channel and see if the YouTube people are picking it up? No. Can you check your audio for me, Dr. Joe? Because I've checked everything on this side and I'm not hearing you on the YouTube or the stream. Nothing. Well, folks, one day I'll figure out this streaming life, but this is our second episode, so forgive us. Still can't hear you, Dr. Joe. Keep talking so I could keep seeing on my end. And you checked all your audio, huh? I'm gonna put my headphones on, see if that helps. All right, can I hear you now? No. Mm, I do not have audio for you at all. It's not coming. Hello. When you talk, I see the microphone, picking up the sound, but it's not coming out. And I've got my audio normal where I have it, but I do not hear you. But you got to keep talking as I test it, no? Shishamus. And decision making and how. For me, yeah, it's on your end because it's not even going through the live stream. Here, why don't I get you on the phone and then maybe we could just use the phone microphone because it's not coming through at all. Well, should we do it on the phone?
Hi, this is Joe Perez.
Can't hear you, Joe. It's something with it's on your audio end. I called. Yeah, you want to put it on speaker so you don't have to hold the phone?
All right.
So I think everybody could hear. Sorry about that, guys. So I'll have to figure that one out. Sorry about that, Dr. Joe.
That's okay, no problem.
We'll make it. Hey, if life was easy breezy, everybody would be doing the big stuff, right?
That's exactly right.
That's why they pay you the big bucks to deal with the stress. So I want to talk about Microsoft putting older versions of SharePoint on life support. Hackers are taking advantage of this, particularly state actors from China. They've heavily targeted this vulnerability in older on-premise versions of file sharing tools after a flawed attempt to patch it. So this vulnerability doesn't impact newer versions of SharePoint. It's the older versions that are self-hosted by organizations. So if you have the cloud-based version, you're safe. But if you're running an on-prem SharePoint server in your network, you need to make sure that it's updated to the latest version. The threat is in the wild. There are POCs for the threat, and it is being actively exploited by nation state actors. So that is the one vulnerability I wanted to talk about today and give you a heads up. But since we have a guest, we won't go into um, a whole bunch of vulnerabilities in depth this week. And there's nothing glaring at me that says, hey, stop, drop, and roll and patch today. So the purpose of this webcast is really to get ahead of the week so that CISOs and security practitioners can know what's coming down the pipeline as far as threats. And Dr. Joe, now it's your turn. We're going to talk about data-driven decision making. So I will let you introduce yourself. Um, and thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, as Sarah mentioned, yeah, this is weird. Well, let me take my headset off so that I don't hear my voice echoing in my own ear. I am a senior system specialist now. I've been promoted at North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. I lead a team of data-driven. Well, hopefully they're data-driven anyway. Trying to put together a data warehouse, or at least continue running it. And as I speak at conferences, one of the things I talk about is the data-driven decision-making that you mentioned, Sarah. I've constructed a you might say, a 5-part framework, or a framework of 5 cornerstones. Some of you who have heard me talk about this in my newest book, From Numbers to Narratives That Transform Business, I talk about encouraging and challenging organizations and businesses and individuals to go from being in data denial to being data-driven. Take them on a journey. It's accomplished through dominance, relevance, significance, surveillance, and vigilance. And if they don't like the rhyming keywords, well, then they can go for 5 L's. Look, link, listen, leverage, and learn. And it all kind of fits together pretty nicely. I had a really amazing time last week in Atlanta, speaking at a cybersecurity conference, the Cyber Strategy Retreat, that went over really well. And folks enjoyed the talk. And hopefully it will be something that will help people become more data-driven in their decision-making. There's something to be said about your savvy, right? You're going with your gut, your intuition, and knowing what you know about your business. Your intuition can guide you into making decisions that are relevant, that are beneficial to your bottom line. But, that intuition, no matter how good it is, that intuition needs to be informed before it can be accurate, before it can be reliable. And so I suppose it's more of having a balance between going with your gut and allowing that gut to be informed with data. So essentially that's the framework. We can talk about each of the specific columns or specific pillars, if you will, that make up this 5-part framework.
Can you hear me if I'm talking to you without your headset? No, you cannot. Oh my gosh, we're a chop shop of streaming webcasters today.
Now I can't hear you.
I know, because it's going to echo if I talk through the phone, but we'll go ahead and try it out. Sorry about that. You can't hear me without that headset.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's it's so interesting because before we can even get to those pillars, we have to clean and sanitize our data. And one of the
Right.
things that I've noticed with new data analysts or data practitioners is they don't realize that 80% of their job is really structuring that data and getting, the push pull, which is basically how we're going to get it out of the database to whatever presentation, whether it's, um, a dashboard that we created or a commercially off the shelf product. And when we're talking about, you know, 200 plus CVEs coming out a month, um, and understanding what's critical in the environment, how do you see data being able to, um, you know, give us context of what's critical and what we should patch first? And I'll just give you an example. We've seen WannaCry. And then you say, well, we have 20,000 Windows servers in our environment, and the threat is in the wild. And we know what happened last time a WannaCry came out. It brought large Fortune 50, 100 companies to their knees, literally, because it's a wormable vulnerability. So, how can data help us understand what 20 machines we should patch in the first 24 hours? Or how can it understand, what controls we have in the environment? Um, Stuff like that. I'm talking about cybersecurity.
Sure. I think it's important that individuals and organizations prioritize their objectives. Right. Look at okay, what are the most important things that need to be reported on? Um, what is what is the top priority? What is uh, going to either answer a question, solve a problem, or help somebody make a decision? Right. It's got to be one of those three things, for the data to be actionable. Either, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? What is the issue that you're addressing? Rather than looking for a problem that doesn't exist or making things up as you go. Um, Look at what your objectives are. Look at what's the most important thing right in front of you, and then link, find and present relevant data. Anybody can make a pretty graph, but is it actionable? Is the data being skewed in any way? Is Are you overcoming your bias? Right? Are you seeing things the way your customer sees them, or are you allowing some sort of bias to skew the way you're looking at it?
That's so
Um,
interesting that you say that, because you would think that, like, we have certain metadata that tells us the criticality of a vulnerability and, like, the mode of how it enters the network, whether it's remotely or you have to be on the box already logged in. And you do have a certain kind of bias. And one of those biases that I can think of on the top of my head is alert fatigue. For example, 10 alerts come in, they're all false positives. By the time you get the 11th one, you ignore it. Um,
yeah.
so having this data driven automation, this repeatability, this measurability, not taking the human deductive reasoning out of the equation at all, but just so that we understand that the data is not skewed, because it's so easy to skew data. You and I, when I was writing the book, where the chapter of climate change, we were talking. Oh no, that was me and that was me and one of my clients actually. But the climate change, where it talks about carbon dioxide parts per million, and the normal citizen doesn't understand parts per million, especially in context of carbon dioxide in a closed environment that is as large as the earth. that it's so small when we're talking 1,000 parts per million, right? But it sounds really large, and you can skew that graph to make 1,000 parts per million look like a big deal. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of it. Or when you're presenting a time series, you will see a slight dip in an overall upward trend. But when you zero in on just those 2 years, it's going to make the change between those 2 years appear more drastic than what it really is. Or if you zero in on, let's say, the scale that you're using in the x-axis, right? Or excuse me, the y-axis, big part, the vertical. And instead of having the scale start at 0, let's say you have the scale start at 400 or something, and there's a dip, but you can make that dip look like a canyon, something that is a drastic drop by those somewhat deceptive practices. Again, either zooming in and looking at just a couple of the years and leaving out the other years that don't jive with whatever you have in mind, your preconceived notion.
and
Right.
also, like, what the type of math that you're using for these algorithms makes a difference too, because a lot of time they're teaching linear algebra. And I'm not sure if it's like this is just so that we can have coherence in education and get people out. And then you go to data conferences or like quantum computing conferences, and you talk to these PhDs, and they're like, you got half like me. I'm like, okay, well, when we're dealing with a lot of moving parts, we need to make very small slices, and calculus is our friend. And you get in fights, we're always fighting about this thing. I'm still going to go with the calculus thing because when you're dealing with so much data that is not the same and it's all different and you use linear algebra, you take those outliers and you throw them away. And it's kind of like the same thing that you were talking about, taking the data from two data points in the middle that has skewed and poisoned the entire sample. You can't just throw outliers away in every case. And that's why calculus is so important, because it takes such tiny, snippets as the data is moving, so you can see the standard deviation in the data without throwing the outliers out. So that's very interesting that you said that.
Yeah, and the other one of the other things to keep in mind is to keep when you're using graphical elements to represent what your numbers are, it's important to keep them proportional. Mathematician Edward Tufte, he used to advocate not exceeding what he called the lie factor. And that is where the graphical items or elements in your data visualization, they need to proportionately represent the numbers, right? So let's say, for instance, you've opened up a new data center and you're trying to measure the number of support calls that you get month by month, all right? And suppose that you wanted to represent those with little icons that look like wrenches or something. And I can imagine if the first month you had 10 such reports or support calls, you make your wrench, say, 3 inches long, right? The following month, you have 30 calls. Well, then your wrench the following month, in order to not exceed Tufte's lie factor, needs to be 3 times the size. But yet, if for whatever reason you're upset about the increase or you don't really care to be accurate, you might get some bohonking huge wrench, that's 10 times as big. And though you call it 30, it's really 10 times bigger. And even though you may or may not display the number that goes with the graph, you have totally skewed the entire, as you put it, you've poisoned the entire graphic, the entire visualization, because you have portrayed it in a deceptive manner, just to illustrate the point you're trying to make. People will shift the data to conform to their opinion rather than forming their opinion around what the data says.
In my master's for a data analyst, one of my capstones was actually that. It was looking at people's bias. Like, you have, and some of these biases are subconscious because, if you read the same word over and over every day, 365 times a year, and then a letter is, you know, exchanged with a different letter, like say they're switched, maybe I and E or E and I, your brain will read the word as it was written properly because it has bias. And we see like one that I remember, that sunk cost bias, right? We go down this rabbit hole of, I've sat in this dealership for 4 hours, which they do to you on purpose, right? Because they want you to have a sunk cost fallacy. They want you to think in your head, I'm so invested in this that I'm going through with the purchase of this vehicle at this point. Or the employer that pays for an employee and the employee is not doing anything. The employer's looking like, oh, well, I already spent 100,000 on this employee and all the training, so I'm going to keep putting more effort into making this employee what he or she will never be, because it's that sunk cost fallacy. And it's important to understand that we have these biases. And none of us, I don't care how smart you are, how high your IQ is, you are susceptible to this because our brain tells us Dr. Joe, for example, is an authority figure. He is a senior data person. He's been doing this for 30 years. Well, his audience are people that don't deal with data, that don't deal with math, and they are going to believe what he says, kind of like the COVID thing with the vaccination. We believed what experts told us because that's subconsciously what humans do, right? That's just how we are. And, even like propaganda or being manipulated, because, and I've done a lot of study on the brain and neuro psychology, especially building Valkyrie and just like the behavior analysis that goes into cybersecurity and forensics and looking at bad actors, and you profile them. And what's interesting to me is that our brain is programmed to be programmed. So none of us are, I guess, none of us have the ability to prevent it. The only difference is I'm aware of it and I know it's happening.
But. Right. Yeah, we want to find the pattern. We want to find the resolution. We see something that appears to be the right solution, and bam, we'll go for it without considering other alternatives. I think some people call that the expedience bias.
So that is so important. Is patterns, right? We're looking for patterns, because even if I have somebody that's done something one time, but if it's a pattern, patterns don't lie. It reminds me of this book, Behavior Types and Tiger Stripes, or Tiger Stripes and Behavior Types. But yes, that's also another fallacy, because it's easy to judge a situation based on it happening one time versus it being a pattern.
Exactly. Teachers, I was an educator for 10 years before I got into IT. And so one of the things that that I've seen teachers do, you're practicing the principal parts of a verb, right? And so you learn, okay, let's start off with sing. Sing, sang, sung. Ring, ring, rang, rung. Think, thank, thunk. They get into the pattern, and then they'll say something really silly and then realize, wait a minute, this doesn't fit the pattern. And the whole point of it was to get you to see that, even though something may look like it's going to resolve into that pattern, don't always take that assumption. Don't take that graph or that incident report at at first glance, right? Challenge those assumptions. Look at it with a critical eye. The expedience bias will get you every time. The equivalence bias, that's another one that we tend to accept information from those that are like us more so than we do from those that are not like us, right?
Well, that's so important for social engineering
Yeah,
because somebody trained in social engineering, I know that my number one job is to get you to like me. So I study you. And then once I find out what your likes and dislikes are, I can make you feel like we're twinsies, we're cut from the same cloth. And now I'm not a threat. You can trust me. And this is
I
how.
will listen to you. If I don't consider you a threat, I will listen to you. I will believe you. And I could just fall into your sinister, nefarious plot or whatever it is that you have to do me harm.
This
Now,
is why I don't give compliments out in my real life freely. This is why I'm not overly friendly to people because, I
it really isn't. Yeah, I've known her for 5 years. No, you're friendlier to people that you know than and that's okay. You have to be cautious.
well, you've been with me for this year, so you more than anybody know that in my learning process that I need to be cautious of people because just
well,
be just because they have a nice charisma or, a nice smile or they're friendly or helpful doesn't mean that they don't want to do me harm. And sometimes we look at situations as humans. We want people to behave. We think people have the same heart or the same behavior as we do. And that's also a fallacy. And I think that's why AI will complement the human in this sense because it will recognize those patterns with ease and a lot faster than we will be able to recognize those patterns. And when we get into those situations where it's an equivalency bias or a expedient bias, the machine will stop us. And because we are making our AI explainable, it's going to go through step by step of the audit process of everything that it did. And that's why we say peer review is so important. In the tech field, we're individual contributors, but we all work together. And I'm saying this for the new people that want to get into IT or cyber, if you're not comfortable making mistakes or showing your work in front of people, you're going to have a really hard time in the industry because it's what we do. And we're okay with our code being peer reviewed. We're okay with our systems being audited. We're okay working together and collaborating. We don't do anything in the dark. So I think AI is going to complement that and speed that up.
Oh, undoubtedly. And as long as we view it as an enhancement rather than a replacement, then I think we'll be better off, right? Because looking upon it as a replacement, then we'll consider AI the threat and we won't use the tool. We consider it as an enhancement and recognize that it can work in conjunction with the creativity that already is within us as human beings. Then hopefully we won't get lazy. Right? It's intended to stimulate our creativity, not stifle it.
So that's funny because I just read an article about people that use ChatGPT that aren't using deductive reasoning. And go back to my IT and cyber field example. We never let engineers use workflows except for in the beginning. Maybe 6 weeks on the job to get over the learning curve. But we've always wanted engineers to think for themselves. So we're not really big on documentation and run books. Like we're like, well, any engineer should be able to figure it out. But now that we're approaching this 543,000 jobs that are short of cyber professionals, for example, and there's no way to fill that gap because there's an experience gap that there's no way that we can speed up. Um, I see AI being able to kind of fill that gap, but you're right. We can't get into a situation where we're getting lazy because that part of your brain, the study that I read, where people are just getting answers from Googling or ChatGPT, it's the similar as you learning, as you absorbing information, but it's not the same as doing because doing creates different synapses in the brain that either become permanent or temporarily permanent or go away as soon as the activity is over. Um, so we can't get lazy, and I think that's why like later roadmaps for Valkyrie, like as we're looking at ways to do this, it's like when there is a learning opportunity, is create a simulation where they can learn, but then they can make the changes right on the box. And it can either go for approval from a manager if it's one of the changes that need, two people to sign off on it, but it'll force them to learn and do at the same time. But there's an audit log kind of there keeping them in check, like, hey, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to turn this nuke on and press this red button? Kind of thing. But they're still learning and doing.
Right, and it takes practice to get to the point where, I guess, in a manner of speaking, it's like gaining the muscle memory through boundless repetition. And conversely, when you're not utilizing that cognitive reasoning process, when you are not thinking for yourselves and taking each step through to its logical conclusion, but allowing some machine to do it for you, it's no different than physically allowing our muscles to atrophy through not using them at all. I
Correct.
mean,
You made me think of something I always
Atlanta, I'm not going to walk to Atlanta. I'm going to use a tool like a vehicle or a plane, whatever, to get there. But for common, ordinary, everyday tasks, I'm going to do them myself. Why not treat your brain the same way? Because we want the answer, we want it quickly, and when there's a greater level of competition, we're tempted to take more and more shortcuts in order to get ahead of the competition, and we're only perpetuating perpetuating the myth that AI driven generative AI driven tools like ChatGPT or Gemini or Anthropic or Claude's Anthropic or whatever the heck you use is the go-to tool. It is the know-it-all. It knows everything. It only knows what we tell it. It only regurgitates what it has already been given. I'm not going to eat a regurgitated hamburger. And by the same token, I don't want to just take a regurgitated idea. Why should we be so willing to express these regurgitated ideas rather than exercising our own brain and coming up with these ideas ourselves? It's because of that competition, the pressure to come out with these things more quickly, as you so expertly and eloquently described, Sarah. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, but the problem with that is like it's like when I interview somebody that tells me they have 15 to 20 years of experience and it's not true. They've been doing the same thing in the same role over and over again. They can explain it theoretically, but they can't explain it in the real life instance because it's never like it is in the books or how they teach you in school. And I always tell my clients, like, yeah, it took me 30 minutes to do it. Your people struggled with it for days. You're paying me for the experience, not the amount of time that it took me, because it took me a long time to learn all of this stuff. And there's just so much information. And then I'm learning every day, right? I had to become a lifelong learner. Every day a new tool is coming out, there's a new problem, there's all of these things to solve. And I think you just mentioned it with the AI is if we continue to use it to help us and not make it a crutch, because it's going to come back to bite the people looking for the easy way, or those trying to get into the competitive market faster, because they're not going to have any, meat on those bones. There's no teeth.
No skill, no innate skill to think for themselves.
Yes.
No innate reasoning, no innate ability to look at a problem from different angles and come up with a solution. What are you going to do when the power goes out?
Correct.
Right?
Because everything needs power. Everybody's like, internet is God. Not without the power. AI is God. Not without the internet. Not without the data. So, like, without power, we're nothing. And people don't think about that. What do you do if the power goes out? What do you do if the AI goes rogue? Because at some point, the AI creates so many other programs and algorithms on its own that Google even said that at some point they couldn't keep track of it all. And nobody was doing AI explainability at that time. And I think this is like going back all the way to probably like 2005 or even before that. So make your AI explainable. Don't make it a black box. We got rid of black box monkeys, and I know this is a bad word. We don't say that in tech anymore, but I'm old school. We got rid of that back in 2001. We're bringing them back because we don't have a choice. And AI is going to be like your GPS. You're not going to have realized how you lived without it. I certainly don't know how I lived without it, and I've only had ChatGPT for a few months, or maybe 6 months at the most. But we have to think for ourselves, and this is what we need to teach children, and not give them the answer. We want them to try to solve it themselves. And the cream will rise to the top. The 1.5% will rise, and the rest will stay in the same positions over and over. What you said is interesting, because it's the way I was able to get to a senior architect position within 3 years at Cisco, although I had been in IT for 22 years prior to that. But there was competition. And instead of focusing on the competition or people trying to show me out, I focused on solving the problem, putting the pieces together, showing my deductive reasoning skills. People can't compete with that type of growth, that type of muscle memory that I've built up over years. And it's really one of the things that allowed me to excel. So, I mean, this is really important for anybody. Don't get into the drama. Don't get into the competition. If you're a woman and a man steals your PowerPoint, who cares? That's one PowerPoint. They can't keep up the act because they can't think like you think. So focus on showing off, your deductive reasoning skills, and the rest falls in line. I mean, all of this pettiness comes out eventually because they can't keep up the act. Same with the competition. If they're just putting out, dashboards on top of ChatGPT, well, your whole product is dependent on ChatGPT. Yeah, we're using ChatGPT. Yes, we're using Microsoft's NLM, which is probably using OpenAI as well. But we also built our own artificial intelligence, which isn't a search tree because it's very specific, right? It's like this node wants to know if mobile device management is implemented. Well, this node wants the answer to that. And then this other node wants to know how many devices are in mobile. And so it's like a neural network. But it's not a search tree. So we're not depending on the internet or the answers out there. It's fine-tuned, but it can learn. It can learn based on observation. It can learn based on user input. And it learns with your environment and gets to know your environment. And I think that's the most cool part about it, is that as your network changes, as your users' behavior changes, the algorithms adopt to you, so you can't protect what you can't see. And so having this do that is so cool to me because it takes out that shadow IT element. Not in all cases, right? I can go put a modem in my electrical cabinet, but you know what I mean. Things that we can detect on the network.
You can't paint with too broad a brush, but you can see these getting back to patterns, right?
Right.
If it's got apples on it, it's an apple tree. If it's got oranges on it, it's an orange tree. There are certain things that are a given, and I suppose our as you put it, our human adaptability, our God-given talent to reason things out is something that needs to be honed, is something that needs to be continually trained and continually improved upon, right? I mean, if you, I've often said that if you are going to be adept at whatever profession that, whatever area of excellence in which you seek to excel, right? In order to be adept, you have to learn to either adapt or adopt, right? Adapt, you shift things around in order to make it work, or you adopt, you take it as is, using your own human intuition, your own deductive reasoning to figure out which avenue am I going to take. Is it going to be an avenue in which I will adapt, or an avenue in which I will adopt? But either way, it's the deductive reasoning that makes it happen. So you have to either, to be adept, you have to either adapt or adopt, one or the other.
And people don't change unless they have a reason to change, right? So
Exactly.
so it's
We're creatures of motivation. If you're not innovating, you're stagnating. If you're not being motivated, then you're just losing out.
pretty much. I feel like you're losing out, but I think you learned this starting in your early years at school, right? Because that's where we first learn to learn and to study and to do all of these things. And some people hate it so much they're willing to just not do it at all and not be motivated. It's kind of like some of my friends that leave the military and they're like, I'm never cutting my hair again. I'm never shaving my beard. I'm never waking up at 6 a.m. ever again. Um, because they're not passionate about it. So we seem to adapt to things that we're passionate about.
Absolutely.
And so passion drives everything. I know I'm very passionate about where we are in our age of technology because to me it's exciting to witness all of the things that are going on politically, all of the things that are going on technology. And if you would have asked me 20 when I was 21, 24 years ago, wait, is it 24? I don't even, wrong math, sorry. But in 2001 when I was about 21, 22, I'm 48 now, so the math was really bad there. Probably missed a couple of years. I think I was at 46, not 48. But
you heard it live on the T on Security. Sarah Spencer is 48. Please pretend like you did not hear that. That will be stricken from all the records, stricken from your brains.
oh my God, it's so funny because even the last time I was on Brag, somebody said, so when did you start? When you were like 10 years old?
Yeah, you don't look 48, to be honest.
I know. It's easy to say on like the camera and like it's filtered to a point or a picture I take in the mirror. But no, guys, like I'm short, I'm little, and then I've lost about 25 pounds, so I'm really tiny, back to my normal weight. Um, and then I just have a childlike glee in my eye that I cannot ever let go. So yeah, I do appear younger, but I'm not. I'm not a child.
Because you're a tree.
Well, I got some gray hair. Like I got like 5 gray hairs and I was so excited. I was like, "Oh my gosh, finally people are going to see that I am wise."
Yeah.
But I don't know what woman said I want to have gray hair, but
Said not any woman ever.
except for Sarah.
Yeah, I don't want to sound sexist.
Oh, we know. Yeah, we could have a whole show about that. We probably actually should, honestly, because it it's sad about the misnomers about the gender bias in IT. And oh, I before we end, because I think this was such valuable information for people, and I know it went really fast and we had some trouble. Um, but the other night, because I just moved to California, so I've been in North Carolina for 8 years. So you and other people are my support system. I don't, I have family here, which is a huge support system, but I don't have my community. So I went to Bay Lisa when I first got out here, um, which is a meetup for tech people. And the president of the Bay Lisa Association in Silicon Valley was the my first tech lead and mentor. One of the people that interviewed me at Electronic Arts 25 years ago was one of the people that said, yes, hire her, gave me my first IT job. What are the odds? Like,
wow.
Full circle. That was just amazing.
Yeah.
To meet up with somebody like that. So I've been building my community here and everything's been going swimmingly. Um, we may have a co-founder, maybe getting ready to apply for the next cohort for Y Combinator. Um, we'll see how it goes. But I'm moving forward without the co-founder like September 6th. So I'll be in a cave for 30 days, literally doing nothing but getting the integrations. And I think we picked like 3 or 4 to make it easy for onboarding. And we'll continue to innovate even after September 6th. It's just going to be you know, the the small business platform. And we picked like 4 features to put out there. So I'll be focusing on the Terraform and the automation. So you go get it from the store and then, you have your own landing page that says whatever, abc.valkyrie.com, working on that now, and the DNS and all of that stuff, and um, how they can change their dashboard. And then I started learning how to use AI in the IDE to speed up the development. So I'm trying to learn that and see what the pitfalls are. Because I'm a cyber person and I'm so positive that this job has turned me into a bit of a negative Nancy, like, paranoia assault everywhere. So just because a director of engineering at BlackBerry is like, hey, you got to build code like this and this makes it faster and this turns you into 100 people, I'm skeptically optimistic. So I've been trying those to see, because now I'm like, okay, where's the security vulnerabilities in this? And then like once I do static code analysis, and how do I know like the code is doing what I need is supposed to do? Is there AI explainability in the IDE? All of these things. So um, I'll put some papers out on that.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you, Dr. Joe. It's been an absolute. What happened? You gone?
You still?
No, I popped up on the screen, and I have no makeup on today, and I didn't get much sleep last night because, like I said, I was dealing with some family issues early this morning.
1 hour, maybe StreamYards has a 1 hour limit.
Oh, because I didn't pay for it. Well, drop your donations in my tip thing so I can pay for Streamline and stream it out to all the channels, people.
There you go. Thank you so much for having me on as your guest, Sarah.
Thank you, and we'll do it again, and next time we'll be a little bit more polished. But I think this was really good information, and I'm really appreciative that you spent your hour with us this morning, Dr. Joe. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Take